Why would one of the world's poorest countries walk away from billions in foreign aid? No headlines, no warnings, just silence, and then a decision no one saw coming. Burkina Faso, a landlocked West African nation long seen as dependent on international support, has done the unthinkable. It shut the door on aid. No more grants, no more loans, no more diplomatic strings tied to humanitarian gestures. And yet, it didn't collapse. In fact, something else started to happen, something unexpected, even unsettling to those who have always claimed to help. Because this wasn't a cry for attention. It wasn't a protest. It was a quiet declaration. We have enough. But how did this sudden shift happen? And more importantly, can it last? Let's uncover the real story behind the country that stopped asking for help and started building something of its own. The silent revolution. While much of the world stayed locked in debates over global summits, climate funds, and economic forecasts, Burkina Faso made its move in silence. No press release, no panel discussion, just a clean break. It didn't pause foreign aid. It rejected it fully. No new loans, no emergency grants, no humanitarian assistance dressed in diplomacy. For most nations, especially those labeled developing, such a decision would be unthinkable. Aid has long been treated not as a choice but a lifeline. But Burkina Faso crossed a line many fear to even approach. And it didn't do it out of anger or chaos. It did it with strategy. There was no panic behind the decision, just clarity. Quiet clarity. The country didn't shout about sovereignty on the world stage. It simply acted on it. And the timing wasn't random. Across the global south, something is shifting. More and more governments and citizens alike are questioning the very foundations of the aid model. The flashy donor conferences, the endless pledges, the high-level partnerships, what have they really changed? Burkina Faso watched, listened, and then chose a different path. Not because it wanted isolation, but because it wanted control. And that's what makes this revolution so hard to grasp for outsiders. It didn't explode. It unfolded softly and decisively behind closed doors. The power of enough. Burkina Faso didn't wake up one day and discover hidden treasure. It didn't stumble onto a foreign investor or tap into a new oil reserve. What changed wasn't what the country had. It was how it viewed what it already owned. For decades, wealth flowed out of the country, not because it was missing resources, but because the resources were managed by outsiders. Gold mined on Burkina soil was shipped overseas to be refined. Food grown by local hands was replaced by imports. The people worked. The land produced, and yet the nation remained dependent. That cycle is now being broken. At the heart of this shift is one powerful idea. Keep value at home. Instead of watching its gold vanish into vaults on other continents, Burkina Faso is now refining it domestically. A state-of-the-art national refinery can now process up to 400 kilograms of gold every day, a transformation not just in capacity, but in ownership. And it doesn't stop at gold. Take agriculture, long overlooked despite its potential. In the past, local tomatoes would rot in the sun while shelves were stocked with imported paste from Europe. That contradiction is now being erased. The government invested over $8 million not in imported goods, but in a modern tomato processing plant built with local labor, powered by local farmers. The same is happening with rice. What used to be a survival crop is becoming a regional export. Through initiatives like Bilions du Sahel, Burkina Faso is feeding not just itself, but its neighbors. These aren't symbolic gestures, they're strategic shifts. And they're all rooted in one question. What have we always had that we've been told we couldn't use without permission? Asterisk. This is no longer about receiving help. It's about refusing to ask. The hidden cost of help on paper. Foreign aid sounds noble. Support for schools, hospitals, clean water, agriculture. Who wouldn't want that? Asterisk, but behind the spreadsheets and smiling press photos, there's a hidden price tag, and it's not measured in dollars. It's measured in sovereignty. Asterisk, every grant came with terms. Every loan came with reforms. Budgets had to be restructured. Markets had to be liberalized. Policies from agriculture to education had to be aligned with the priorities of donors, not citizens. Asterisk, over time, decisions once made by Burkina leaders were quietly outsourced to embassies and economic advisors thousands of miles away. Asterisk, this wasn't charity. It was directional financing, money used to steer a country where others wanted it to go. Take structural adjustment programs pushed by the IMF and World Bank. Countries like Burkina Faso were told, privatize your state-owned industries, cut social spending, open your doors to foreign investors. In return, they'd get loans and technical support. What they often got instead was economic fragility, weaker institutions, and rising public distrust. Asterisk, aid dressed up as opportunity slowly became a leash. One that didn't just guide policy, it shaped identity. Burkina Faso wasn't just losing control over infrastructure. It was losing something deeper, the right to dream, plan, and fail on its own terms. Asterisk, and that's the silent damage no one talked about. The psychological erosion that happens when a country is told over and over again, you can't stand without. Asterisk, that's what Burkina Faso is rejecting now. Not just the money, but the mindset that came with it. Reclaiming the narrative. Burkina Faso isn't making headlines because it's collapsing. It's making quiet progress. And that's what makes this story so unsettling for the global establishment. Asterisk, there was no protest, no viral speech at the UN, no dramatic standoff, just policy. Quiet, confident policy. Asterisk, refining gold at home, processing tomatoes in country, exporting rice instead of importing it. Asterisk, these aren't revolutionary acts on the surface, but in a system built on dependency. Self-sufficiency is rebellion. Asterisk, and what's most radical, there's no attempt to win Western approval. Burkina Faso isn't asking the global North to cheer its efforts. It's not waiting for validation. It's not performing. It's simply doing the work. Asterisk, that's the real threat to the old narrative, the idea that development requires a helper. That poor countries can't act unless someone richer is guiding the way. Asterisk, Burkina Faso is proving the opposite. It's not asking how to be saved. It's asking, what if we never needed saving at all? Asterisk, and here's the paradox. By walking away from the system designed to help it, the country is now being watched, not with pity, but with curiosity. Asterisk, because if one of the world's most aid-dependent nations can survive without donors, what excuse do others have? Asterisk, this isn't just economic reform. It's a rewriting of identity. It's a nation taking back its story. Asterisk, and for those used to writing Africa's script, that's deeply uncomfortable. The global backlash begins. History has a pattern, and it rarely rewards nations that break free without permission. Burkina Faso's rejection of aid might look peaceful on the surface, but behind the scenes, the backlash has already begun. Asterisk, not in the form of bombs or invasions, but in something far more subtle. Narrative control. Asterisk, whispers are growing. Think tanks releasing quiet concerns. News outlets describing the country as unstable, radical, out of step. Diplomats warn of economic collapse. Reports predict failure. Asterisk, The message is clear. They can't survive this. They'll come back. Asterisk, but that's not analysis. That's pressure wrapped in politeness. Because if Burkina Faso succeeds, even partially, it sends a dangerous signal to the system. This model is not necessary. Asterisk, and when necessity turns into an option, power begins to unravel. Asterisk, the truth is, aid was never just about support. It was about leverage. And now that the old levers aren't working, new tools are being pulled. Media framing to seed doubt. Diplomatic pressure disguised as concern, economic forecasts built to shake investor confidence, all of it designed to pull Burkina Faso back to the table it walked away from. Asterisk. But here's the twist. The real danger doesn't just come from outside. It comes from within. Asterisk, can the country maintain unity when the first cracks appear? When shortages hit? When critics, foreign or domestic, begin to shout louder than the results? Asterisk, because walking away is one thing, but staying upright when the whole world expects you to fall, that's something else entirely. Asterisk, can it last? Asterisk, every revolution faces its moment of reckoning. Not at the start, but in the slow, quiet grind that follows. Asterisk, Burkina Faso has stepped off the well-worn path. Now it has to build its own, step by step, stone by stone, without a blueprint and without backup. Asterisk, the question hanging in the air isn't just can it work? It's can it survive what comes next? Asterisk, because this kind of independence doesn't just demand vision. It demands discipline, resilience, and internal alignment. Asterisk, will public services, once propped up by donor money, rise to meet real demand? Asterisk, can local industries withstand market shocks without foreign bailouts? Asterisk, and most importantly, when things get hard, will the people still believe? Asterisk, real sovereignty means owning the risks, not just the rewards. It means taking the blame when policies fail. It means choosing discomfort over convenience. It means living with your own mistakes rather than someone else's conditions. Asterisk, this isn't about rejecting the world. It's about building a country that doesn't collapse when a donor changes presidents. Asterisk, and the truth is, Burkina Faso's biggest test won't come from the West. It'll come from within. In the months and years ahead, when the excitement fades and the reality sets in. Asterisk. But there's something quietly working in the country's favor. The people are ready. They've seen the cycle of dependency. They've lived through the promises that never came true. Asterisk. And now, for the first time in a generation, they're watching their government bet on them. Asterisk. Not donors, not consultants, not international agencies. Asterisk, and that trust, if protected, might be the strongest currency the nation has. A ripple across Africa, Burkina Faso may have moved alone, but it's not alone anymore. Asterisk, across the continent, something is shifting. Not just in policies, but in minds. Asterisk, from the markets of Bamako to the classrooms in Nairobi, from the villages of Guinea to the ports of Togo, a quiet question is taking root. Asterisk, if they can do it, why can't we? Asterisk, for decades, African nations have been told to wait. Wait for development, wait for approval, wait for funding. But now, a country once labeled desperately poor is refusing to wait. And still, it stands. That's the real disruption. Asterisk, not a protest, not a boycott, but a working example, a living, breathing alternative, not perfect, not polished, but real, and it's more contagious than any summit speech, because this isn't ideology. It's action, a tomato factory, a gold refinery, asterisk A. Rice export network, asterisk, these aren't theories. The results, and results are hard to argue with. Already, Whispers are turning into conversations in parliaments, in youth circles, and in private offices. Young Africans, many of whom have only ever known their countries through the lens of external dependency, are starting to ask bigger questions. What would happen if we trusted ourselves first? What if progress didn't have to be prescribed? What if foreign help isn't help at all, if it comes with control? With every policy Burkina Faso enacts, the mirror grows clearer, the message gets louder. It's possible. You don't need to beg. You don't need to ask. You don't need to explain. You just need to start. The new road. What Burkina Faso has done isn't loud. It isn't flashy. It doesn't come with breaking news coverage or global applause. But it might just be the most radical act of leadership Africa has seen in decades. By walking away from foreign aid, Burkina Faso didn't just reject money. It rejected a narrative, the one that says Africa is helpless without help. Broken without outside guidance. Incapable without external permission. That narrative is now cracking. And in its place, a new path is being carved. Slow, uneven, difficult, but owned. Burkina Faso is choosing discomfort with dignity over comfort with strings. It's choosing to stand, even if it stumbles. It's choosing to lead, not with speeches, but with action. And that's what makes this moment historic. Not because it's perfect, but because it's theirs. The tomato factory, the gold refinery, the rice exports. They're not just economic moves. They're statements. Statements that say, we're not waiting anymore. This isn't about nationalism. It's about memory, about remembering that before aid, before advisors, before intervention, the land provided, the people worked, the systems functioned, and now they will again. Of course, the road ahead is uncertain. The pressure will come, soft at first, then sharp. The world doesn't like systems it can't control. But Burkina Faso isn't looking for permission anymore. It's listening inward, not outward. That may be its greatest risk, and its greatest strength. Because if this works, if the country stands firm, then the idea itself becomes unstoppable. That Africa can define itself, that dignity doesn't need to be donated, that freedom isn't granted, it's claimed. And that may be, for the first time in generations, a country stopped asking how to be helped, and asked how to be free. Do you think Burkina Faso will hold the line? Can other nations follow this path? Or is this a once-in-a-generation stand? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more stories like this one, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We're telling the stories no one else is, stories of Black power, history, resilience, and the futures being written right now. Built, not bought. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay tuned and stay awake.